Hello everybody, welcome. I'm Sophia and I'm the organiser of Data Insights Cambridge. Thank you everybody for coming out. Just to say thanks to Metail. Matt here is a data scientist at Metail. They're our sponsor tonight, and they've been very kind to support us for years now. So yeah, we're very grateful to them.
Please have your thoughts.
So I'm going to keep it very brief because we have a very interesting speaker tonight. I'll say a few words. Johannes Castner is currently he's finishing his PhD. He's doing that at the University of Columbia.
Columbia University.
Sorry, Columbia University, not the University of Columbia. And is based in London, where he is a co-founder of CollectiWise, which we'll hear more about tonight. Previous to this, Johannes was a data scientist at Federal Reserve Bank and also at eBay for a couple of years as well, doing very interesting work there. So I won't say anything further, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm Johannes, and I will be speaking directly and mostly about the product that we're building at CollectiWise. That's going to be the focus. And in talking about that, I will do some introduction to various forms of reasoning and also to the concept of collective intelligence and collective wisdom, the way that I see it. As relevant to decision making, not some kind of esoteric form of wisdom having to do with, spirituality, but wisdom in the sense of making wise decisions collectively. This is my team. There's a few people missing. There's a woman in Croatia. Her name is Lorena. She's not on this picture. She does human-computer interaction and user experience. And this is Barbara. Barbara is the COO. She runs the organization, basically how we interact and, meetings. She organizes everything basically having to do with the actual organization. Austin is the CTO. He and I built the product together, basically, the back end mostly. We outsource a lot of the front end. And actually, I'm sorry, Nirene also builds with us. She's a senior engineer. That's about the team. About collective intelligence and collective wisdom, there's probably a ton of different kinds of definitions, and that's completely fine. The way that I define it is just how it is most useful for our platform, and that is really that intelligence is about understanding and learning of probabilistic causation and of logic, as well as ontology, taxonomy, how knowledge is organized basically by people and how they understand how causation and how various things are logically and causally connected in a probabilistic way. I'll get more into the details as we go along. Wisdom then adds to this an understanding of ethics and how certain ethical puzzles are embedded within causal and probabilistic systems and how they're actually connected to them. So if you have an ethical sense on top of understanding of just causation and logic, then that to me constitutes wisdom. Now there are categories of argument. I'm going to go through them relatively quickly because I'm going to get into the details as we go along more deeply. So there's in taxonomy, an inheritance of concept hierarchies. All of that can be sort of subsumed in a bigger concept called an ontology, how things are related to each other. Wikipedia is in essence something like that, and it's also a collectively constructed ontology. So this is really part of a collective intelligence system. When you make decisions, you have to know how things are, sort of how concepts fit together, really. Then on top of that, you have probabilistic estimation of events. Something like, for example, you might want to might want to estimate the probability of someone winning an election or an earthquake hitting Ireland or something like that. and that would be, one parameter that you would estimate, and you can do that collectively in what is known as a prediction market. And then, but that really doesn't help you for most decisions, because there's something lacking, and it is structure. Most systems that you want to make decisions in have more structure to them, and I'll go through that. Having to do with causal maps, if you will, and also logical maps. And then you have this logical quantifiers. Universality. For every man will die because every man is actually human, and humans are primates, and primates are animals, and animals die. So then you have ethical logic on top of that, and I'll go into more details as we go along. So the first person that I know of who has done, an empirical proof, if you will, of collective intelligence was Sir Francis Galton, when he observed he was at a county fair, and there were about 800 people who were asked to estimate the weight of an ox. So this is a very famous, it was also featured in a book known The Wisdom of the Crowd by Servicki, I think. I'm sorry?
James Servicki.
Yeah, Servicki, yeah. And so anyway, they were asked to guess this weight of this ox, and Sir Francis Galton thought that was curious, and he asked if he could see the data, and then he just summarized the data in basic statistical summaries like mean. He took the mean, and he noticed that the mean was actually very close to the actual weight of the ox, and much closer than any of the individual guesses or anyone. And that sort of demonstrated collective intelligence for the first time. There are people who have theorized about this since Ibn Khaldun in 14th century Arabic world. But nobody has, to my knowledge, has done such a demonstration until Sir Francis Galton did in 1906, I think. So to add some more structure to it, and also to sort of highlight how people sometimes are easily fall into some traps of probability. There's this famous problem called the Monty Hall problem, and so what it is really there was a game show host, a famous game show host of this game show called Let's Make a Deal, and his name was Monty Hall, and so that's why this problem inherited his name. And what he did is really he had these 3 doors, and behind one of them it was known that there was a prize, a very expensive car or something like that, and people would want to win it. And he would give the contestant, he would let the contestant make a first guess. He says, okay, behind which of the doors is this car, and behind which other doors are goats? And maybe he would pick at random 1/3, because there's really no special knowledge that this person has when he starts playing this game. So he would pick maybe door 1. And then Monty Hall would go and he would open a door. And behind that door would definitely be a goat. So he would never open the door that has the car behind it. And he can't open the door that the contestant had chosen before. And because of that, the probabilistic structure of the game actually changed. And then it is rational to change one's choice. And this is actually a lot of economists and statisticians sort of would say, oh no, you shouldn't change your choice, there's nothing at first. And this was interesting to know that even people who had dealt with probabilistic problems for their professional life often fell into this trap that they couldn't see that actually there was something changing in the structure of the probability space. And here you can see it pretty simply on this slide, right? So basically if the car is behind door 2, right, then Monty Hall could not open it. Because he always opens only one where there's a goat behind, right? If you had chosen door 1, then and he shows you the goat, then it's either due to the fact that the price is here or the price is there, right? And so due to the fact that you chose randomly and now he chose non-randomly, actually these two doors together have probability 2/3, but you know it's not there, right? So he killed that probability measure right there, and door 2 by itself actually has probability 2/3 of having the price behind it. Do you guys all understand why, and does it make sense? So, but I think so, and I think this is a truth that many problems in the world have such a character. You know, that there's basically chained together Monty Hall problems all over the place, and in the real world. And it turns out that in combinatorial prediction markets, as have been built by Microsoft Research and Yahoo Research before that, it turns out that people can overcome them in collectives. So some people get the structure, and then people start betting in a way. And when they start betting, you know, some people will lose money, but most people will think harder and they think a little bit longer about it, and then actually rather complex problems that are much more complex than the Monty Hall problem, and in fact can be uncovered by a collective in a sort of structural way. So imagine now here another toy problem, but one that sort of relates maybe more to the real world and why we do things at CollectiWise. You know, like what we really want to do is we want to help collectives, you know, for example, hedge funds, to think better and to make better decisions, harnessing really the brilliance of its members, of their members, rather than having top-down decision making. What you can enable is you can really enable hierarchy-free decision making, where everyone who's brilliant, which should be everyone in the company, in the organization, that's why you hire them, right, can have an input into the decision making. Actually an equal one, or in some case over time you learn who should have more of a weight, right? And that is actually based directly on the merits of their performance, right? So then, so for example, you have, so to illustrate this, what kind of problems you might be facing, you know, they will be much more complex than this, but this is sort of a very simplified, it's simplified to the point where it can make all of the points of it, but you know, it shows